Here today with Mollie George. Mollie is pursuing her doctorate degree at the University of Nebraska Lincoln in gerontology. Mollie, thank you so much for joining Andrew and I here today. And I'm going to talk a little bit to our viewers about supporting and communicating to families who are caring for those who have dementia and tips to help them through this very difficult time. Thank you for being here, Mollie. I'll give you the floor here and you can tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you're seeing.
Hey, thanks so much, Karla. Thanks for having me on this great opportunity to talk with you guys and to share some information. I think, as everyone says, we're in a very challenging and a unique time that we really have never seen before. But as I'm looking over information and the things I'm reading about, I'm kind of reminded that a lot of this is really nothing new to caregivers. They're used to being challenged and used to being really having to be creative in a lot of various situations. So I think this is just kind of a variation of what they've always done. And so, you know, our caregivers are really strong and amazing people. And I know that they can honestly meet the need of any challenge that comes to them. So just some things that I've been noticing, obviously not being able to be involved in our normal routines, not being able to be in touch with individuals, our own families, people that maybe checked in on us, supported us. So we have to be creative in those different areas. Really just some main challenges that I see a lot of people dealing with are loss of those social supports, loss of respite options, loss of just that routine in general. And that can be really challenging, not being able to have that plan every single day. So that means we have to be creative and we have to maybe use plan B or plan C. So those are the challenges I've seen probably for the most part. Again, challenges are nothing new for caregivers. So they deal with that every single day, but we'll go through some tips maybe to help kind of manage that load right now.
Yeah, that would be great. I think, in general, when we think about what are we going to do today, there's a lot of limitations outside of our home. But just like you said, being creative to say, not what can't we do, but what can we do? Mm-hmm. And focusing on our own environment, our own spaces, what can we create outside? I know we've had clients out gardening with caregivers, mm-hmm. And things. So what, as far as kind of in the home or around the home, what are some ideas that you love that you've seen people do to get creative?
Yeah, those are some great questions. And this is kind of my favorite thing about dementia support, caregiving, things like that, is really the ability to be creative. Our own homes have a lot of ways that we can do this. And especially now that it's gotten warmer and we can be outside and again, doing those kind of everyday tasks that maybe we have relied on the family to do, we want to really encourage that individual with dementia to help us out with those tasks. We need to give that person a purpose and really work on the strengths and the skills that they still have remaining. So a lot of great things that I've come across just over the years that I really like. And I think now, talking with you guys before we started filming, that I really believe that, again, these are just variations on things that we've always kind of done. So especially now we hear about people setting up their own office spaces because they can't go into work. We hear about parents setting up teaching spaces, classroom settings for their children during this time of at-home education. And I really think we can incorporate those same techniques. So if your loved one loves going into the office or there's a certain routine that you've done, have a space where just that is the option for what they can do in that moment. So if they're used to going to the office or they like that, have a desk set up, have some papers. I know that I used to always incorporate maybe some junk mail in with the documentation that person needed to sort through or something, maybe some coupons. we want them to do a task. We don't want it to be baby-like. We want it to be an adult task, but it needs to be a task that really doesn't matter if they do it right or wrong. There's no right or wrong answer. So sorting things is a really good thing. Again, lawn care, getting out, even pulling weeds, sitting down, pulling weeds, that helps everybody. Find some options that maybe help a neighbor out. If a neighbor needs maybe some flowers planted, or maybe you can make up some little care packages or baskets and put some flowers in them. And that individual with dementia can help you arrange that. Again, it doesn't matter if it looks that pretty. That not only gives a sense of purpose, but that also helps somebody else. So Karla, my favorite things are those tasks that kind of create organization, they create structure, but yet they also help somebody else out. So I'm trying to think of some other great things. Again, going for a car ride, that's a great thing. A walk. I can't think of anything better than going for a walk. Maybe just walking out, getting the mail. Sometimes it's very simple tasks, but even having those small things structured throughout the day is really important. So even if you can come up with a list of maybe 5 to 6 things that you can stick in between, we know we eat breakfast at a certain time, we have lunch at a certain time, we have supper. So start with those mainstay things and then put in those filler activities. So maybe that is reading the paper with a cup of coffee. Maybe that's getting the mail. Maybe that's if they have a pet, walking the dog. Especially right now when it's warm, we're not isolated really just to our home. We can be in our yard. We can walk in the community. Going to Holmes Lake and sitting on a bench. There's really a lot of things I think we can be doing without while social distancing, but not socially isolating ourselves. There's a big difference, and we want to make sure that we're not socially isolating ourselves and that caregiver even together.
Mollie, that might be one of the most valuable things that I've heard so far, and I think of what that planning would look like for somebody that's a caregiver for another person. Deciding what those activities will look like could greatly reduce what their stress looks like during the day. Kind of think of, something minor like planning dinner. When you're having to do that and you're doing it at the time, it's a lot more stressful. But when you're planning out what a day could look like, you don't get behind and you're not working on engagement. We're in very stressful times. Somebody might be caring for multiple generations within their family. So that planning could really go a long way to say, let's stay busy today and let's both stay active and as calm as we can. Could make a huge difference. Maybe somebody listening to this that's had some tough days because they're just watching TV because it seems like the easiest thing to do could be really a tough challenge right now, I think, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, and I would really caution people with the television watching. Again, it really depends on what we're watching. So I would say, limit TV usage to a television program that's predictable. So something that is going to have a positive outcome. It's going to be uplifting. It's going to be of positive nature. We don't want to be having the news on 24/7. And again, having all these news stories flying around, because we know that scares me. I can't handle, I can't handle even, a lot of that. I mean, I think the local news, maybe for a little bit, the weather is always a good thing to watch. Even just like an Andy Griffith show, depending on the age of that individual, any type of sitcom that's positive in nature. If that person loves TV and they've got to get their TV in, we don't want to take that away. But again, know your individual. And we talked about this before. So it's so important to know that person you're caring for, because you're going to know what fits them, their personality, and their needs. And that could be very, very different than someone else's needs, someone's level of understanding. So knowing that each person takes in information differently and they're able to communicate differently is a huge factor in all of this.
Mollie, I guess I have a question about that. I've not ever come across this before, but maybe you have. Is there a way or kind of a tool for a caregiver that would help them to understand, where someone's at? understand like what are the levels of activities that they're able to do. So
Mhm.
when it comes to things like helping someone to get dressed, we're not helping someone more than they need to, so that way they're losing functionality. Just understanding comprehension and then tracking that as the time changes. I think that's going to be one of the most important things. You know, when we become a caregiver, it's the easiest to just go in and do everything for someone. We'll see a rapid decline. But then, you know, if you kind of level set and where someone's at today and you look at where they're at in a year from now, if you're not doing that assessment yourself, you might become frustrated thinking that they should be able to do something that they're just not able to do anymore. You know, what are your thoughts on how did you find out where that person's at in all these different areas?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And keep in mind too that, depending on the time of day, people kind of can bounce around on what they're capable of doing, what they're not. I think a good way to gauge that, if you're not really sure, is to start out with with kind of a lower level task, kind of start out with something maybe like a sorting task. Um, Even if you're coming in from ground zero that you don't really know where this person is at, maybe you're a new caregiver to this individual, sometimes just asking that person, you can gauge a lot by asking them a simple question. What do you feel comfortable doing? And again, if you kind of get a glassy look, or there's a lot of kind of fumbling going around, or they seem frustrated, gauging their body language is going to be really beneficial. If you don't have any background information on the person, no level of really of when they've been diagnosed or if they've been diagnosed, again, watching their own body language and how they respond to you. We don't want to overwhelm that person, but we don't want to offend them either by giving them a super menial task. Again, just spending a little bit of time with that person, even just going for a walk with them, kind of gauging how they relate in conversation, what they're saying to you, what is making sense, maybe what doesn't have a lot of validity at that point. That's going to help us gauge that. So, doing a task that kind of we can all do, whether it's walking, whether it's getting the mail, and then kind of going up from there. If we don't want to get too complicated with things, because that will really frustrate the person. But again, like I said, we don't want to, dumb things down too much for them, quote unquote. So
I think that's
Molly,
helpful
I liked one. Oh,
to
sorry.
just be, I think it's helpful to be in the mindset of let's understand how someone's doing. And because right now with things being stressful, we are impatient. And so when we think, if we're doing anything, we're just impatient with everyone in our family, I would say, you're like, I just need this done now. I need this done now. But to be thinking about what is on the other side of this need and really focusing on what that assessment looks like could help us with our own impatience.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. And it is frustrating. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, when you're used to going and being out and about, and now you have to be home and you've got to think outside the box, and you have somebody that, again, isn't, they're even within the day, they're probably not consistent on their level of abilities and their own level of patience with themselves. So it is a really challenging, unique situation, but it also, I think, can really provide a lot of levels of teamwork and connection, and really bringing out the best in each other. I think we focus so much on the negative sides of caregiving and what a burden that is. And I'm not sitting and making light of this, that it's not. But especially in these times, I think it's really beneficial to look at the positives and to, again, I think as a caregiver, making a list in the morning and saying, okay, we can't, thinking in our head, first of all, we can't do these things, but let's make a list of the things we could accomplish today or ways we can support other people. Because so much too, when we feel isolated, not only emotionally, but maybe spiritually, maybe physically, all of those things, obviously it tends to have a negative impact on our abilities and our attitude. So again, that's another thing we want to watch, as a caregiver, your perspective and your attitude is really going to influence that person that you're caring for, whether you want it to or not. So if you're more positive, if you are kind of thinking creatively, thinking outside the box, you're trying to get some energy into that day, more than likely that person is going to follow your lead on that. So we want to maintain positivity. We want to have a list of those go-to things that that person likes to do, that they're capable of doing, and that both the caregiver and that person truly have a good time doing that. So sometimes that's even just walking around your yard and maybe taking inventory of some flowers. And, maybe we could switch this plant out. Maybe we could, just changing some cosmetic things to our garden. Maybe we could keep a running list of what plants are growing at better rates than others. We can be really creative. We can make things kind of a scientific approach, gauging growth rates of our garden and maybe the gas mileage even on the car, taking that out and seeing what type of gas mileage we're getting in town compared to maybe what we got on the highway, and that's kind of fun too. Washing the car, that's a really fun activity. Again, those types of activities that create a purpose, they actually do get a job done, and helping other people are so important. I can't stress that enough. So
Yeah,
thanks for that.
A couple of things I was just thinking about, Molly, and one is a lot of those examples that you gave us not only provide really great engagement, but also how important they are for us to be physically moving.
mm-hmm.
And I know you've done a lot of research on that and how important that physical movement is. Many people right now have been really sitting idle now for almost 2 months. And that's really hard on our bodies, not just our stress levels, but we need to physically maintain our muscles and our strength so that we can continue to care for ourselves as much as we can. And then, another thing I was thinking about when you did the training for our team was your example of show and tell, of showing people. And when you're doing cues, especially if you're trying to gauge, can this person do this activity for themselves? Show them, give them an example to do it, put your own shoes on, and then, allow them to do that demonstration, how important those cues are, visual cues, tactile cues, verbal cues, all the above when we're working with dementia.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's so much in the words that we say have so much power, but also in the actions we do. So like you said, have that person show you their abilities. I mean, I wouldn't challenge them on that, but you'll be able to gauge that after watching them. And don't be afraid to have that person help you as the caregiver do things. We all feel empowered when somebody wants our opinion, when somebody wants our help. That makes us feel good, just, like you guys asking me to come on here today and talk and brainstorm and to share some things with you. That makes me feel good. That makes me feel like I have a purpose and I have information to share, and, and that just conveys that level of respect. So I think we don't ever want to diminish the ability to let somebody help us as the caregiver. And if that means handing that person a vacuum and having them push the vacuum, if they're steady and that's something physically we think they can do, setting a table. Again, there's so many household tasks that I think as caregivers, we think, well, I'm just going to do that and get that out of the way because then that's one thing off my plate and then we don't have to worry about it. Well, yes. I mean, I've been a CNA and I understand that is beneficial and we all want to, get those little things out of the way. But sometimes if we get that person occupied doing a household chore, like even dusting is huge because there's no right or wrong way to dust. If you hand somebody a Swiffer duster, you put that in their hand, no matter their level of dementia, they're going to know what to do with that. I mean, maybe they're going to start dusting the wall at some point. That's okay. Maybe they're going to dust the furniture. That's okay. They're going to understand that this is what I dust with. And I always say giving somebody something concrete to hold in their hand is so beneficial because it kind of is like passing that baton. We give them the power to do something but they're really actually helping us. And I think offering some praise up and some encouragement and saying, boy, hey, you're hired, you did a great job with that. Like, I hope you're not charging me too much to have you dust today for me or vacuum, kind of making a joke out of it. And I tell you what, when we encourage somebody and we offer praise, that makes both people feel good. You're helping each other. It's a team effort. So I think we've got to quit siloing the caregiver role and the person with dementia, their roles. And we need to quit putting up this divider and saying, well, they can't do this or they shouldn't do this. There's always the big controversy. I always go back in the old days when we didn't want to give anybody anything sharp. We don't give somebody scissors. We don't give them a knife. When you look at especially dementia kind of practices within the Montessori community, that is completely thrown out the window. It's all about autonomy and about giving that person dignity.
Yeah.
No, I probably wouldn't let somebody, depending on the ability, maybe take a riding lawnmower. Again, you got to know that person. But giving someone scissors and having them cut something for you or a knife to cut up vegetables, I have never seen, in my work with dementia, I have never seen anyone, maim themselves. I've never seen them cut off a finger. I've never seen them stab someone. I think we need to obviously have good common sense about using those items. But again, if that person can help you, let them help you.
Yeah. I remember when I was caregiving and the client had a garden and he happened to have just a ton of ripe tomatoes. And so I thought, well, we'll make some salsa here today. And got the ingredients and he was chopping the tomatoes. And we got done, and I still remember him, asking about the salsa. And I told him, I said, "You cut up all the tomatoes. You did that." And I did that. Wow. He was really impressed, and he was so proud when his son came home to share that salsa that he made. It was really neat.
Well, sure, and that's awesome that you did that because then he was able to share what he did with someone else and help them out. So you guys were passing it forward, and that's so important. When we, as a caregiver, just do everything for that person, we really take a lot away from that individual with dementia. So allowing them that autonomy and that ability and their own creativity to shine through is so important. I kind of, on one of the slides I made, I remember I put on there, boredom equals behaviors. So if you are letting that person get bored, that's going to open the door for a lot of agitation, a lot of frustration, a lot of negative things. So keep that person engaged. And yeah, I mean, something as simple as picking tomatoes, or they've, now we don't have any apples ready yet, probably not till September-ish, but picking flowers, pulling weeds, any of those tasks. That's why I love this time of year for dementia care, because gardens are a huge thing. And maybe people don't have any flowers planted, or they don't have the space for a garden. Anybody can go and get a pot at Menards or Walmart, have somebody pick it up for you. If, we don't want to be taking that person out and about in the community, where they're exposed to COVID or things like that. But, even be creative. Maybe you can even build a sort of a window box out of some old 2x4s in the garage. Or, I've even found, even in my little space I have in my garage, I've got just some leftover materials from other projects. So get creative, make your own, garden plots, things like that. A lot of these folks from these past generations, they're a resilient bunch, and they're used to going without and doing without. A lot of them have lived through that time period. So let them teach you something about what it means to be creative and create things. And I think we can learn a lot from each other during this time.
Mollie, I think these are some awesome tips and tricks for caregivers, and really will be helpful to decrease agitation while we might all be cooped up. The last thing that I want to kind of talk about real quick is, what do you think the rest of 2020 might look like? we're really thinking about caregivers. And if somebody's watching this and they know someone that's caring for somebody else, share it for these tips. But and another important part is coming out the other side of this with, there's been a reduction in our ability to connect with other people through support groups. And as a caregiver, we don't want to be isolated too much and not have the support, because it's very valuable. What do you think that looks like remotely now and within the next couple months? What do people need to do to get the support that they need and make sure that we're not getting overwhelmed when even sometimes you might be used to more family members coming over to be helping with care, but they are just not able to do that right now. You don't have those two essential pieces of caregiver support.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Andrew. I mean, and that is really challenging. A lot of our support groups have gone either online or they've ceased to meet. Sometimes if we want something, we need something, sometimes we have to do it ourselves, right? So I even encourage people, if you miss that support group environment, you have already established group, but you can't meet face to face. Do something where you call up someone and put them on speakerphone, or have a lot of, I know the Apple phone, you can have kind of whatever you call it, like have multiple people on the line at one time. So you can activate that. It doesn't have to be a Zoom call. Some people are uncomfortable with that type of technology, but you can instigate that. You can, again, that empowerment to do something new, to reach out to others, that gives a lot of encouragement to yourself. And it kind of takes us out of the victim mentality, and it puts us into a new ability to conquer and to help others. So yeah, I mean, if that support group that you're used to isn't meeting, definitely maybe you have, maybe there's 5 people in your support group. Well, maybe you and your individual you're caring for can make a list and say, okay, Mondays we're going to call Sue. We're going to call Sue and check on her. Tuesdays we're going to call Jim and check and see how he's doing. And you can connect with people and then put them on speakerphone. I would encourage people not to let go of that avenue of support. Keep that going, even if that means narrowing it down. But maybe we don't decrease our support group. We just change the way we do it a little bit. We just need to tweak things. So maybe that's a conversation. Maybe we decide we're going to maybe do a newsletter or something. We're going to send out, a Christmas card in June or something, or May right now. And we just talk about what we've been doing and encourage other people to send letters. In this time, that's something we don't do a lot of anymore. We don't send a lot of cards, and somebody with dementia can certainly still sign their name. Maybe they can't write out the note in the card, but they can certainly sign their name. They can help you decide what card to pick out, things like that. A lot of us have greeting cards on hand at home. I know I have a box of kind of just random cards. So when an occasion comes up, I can send those. I would encourage that. So I probably got off a little bit out in the weeds here. But again, I think when we're talking about what this looks like for the months to come, unfortunately, we don't know. So I would encourage caregivers to be creative and to just kind of tweak the situation for what works for you. You don't have to change everything, but just change things in how you approach other people and keep those lines of communication open. Be educated. I think the worst thing you can do during this time for anything is get your information from Facebook. So I would highly discourage, if you're a big Facebook user, social media user, get your information from trusted sources, whether that be the CDC, whether that be the Alzheimer's Association, whether that be caregivers.com, things of those nature that we know to be tried and true. Go to those sources. Continue to make those phone calls, write those letters. I think it's been really cool in my neighborhood when I go for runs. I see that the kids in my neighborhood have written on the sidewalks encouraging messages. So when people that are out and about walk, they read that. So again, we've got to get creative. We maybe can't do things face to face, but I think sometimes maybe that's okay. It makes us go beyond what we're comfortable doing, and I think it really can provide a lot of great new avenues for connections and for engagement for down the road.
Yeah, two things I think of just to wrap up are, if you are a caregiver, it's okay to not be okay. If you don't have your normal support group, see how you can reach out to them, or reach out to other family members and just let them know, I'm having a difficult time. I think what we'll see is people step up to that occasion. So a family member may not know the difficult time that you're having unless we talk about it. And then there's that opportunity to say, Mom, can I bring over some meals for you and Dad and just drop them off? Thinking of like, what are the things that we can do to help lighten the load for other people? And then just giving that permission and making the plan of what does that future support look like? Everybody is going to need a little bit of respite time when life gets back to normal. Parents of any age, children, people that are working remotely, just all these factors that are going on, and caregivers fall into that line too. Overwhelmed of months and months with less support than normal, and kind of make that plan, have some conversations with your family of what you need and what that looks like could be really good. You're kind of looking at, what's a light at the end of the tunnel when I can get some more support when my family is helping me again. Can I do a respite program for a few days? Can I bring in some additional partial help? And it might get over the permission that somebody needs so they're not getting overly burnt out. So hopefully we've shared some great tips and tricks today and help set people up for success moving forward. Karla, anything else that you can think of?
I think that was great. Mollie, thank you so much for joining us today. You are such a blessing to so many people, and we appreciate your expertise. Thank you.
Thanks so much for all you guys do, and thanks for having me on today. It was a lot of fun. So
take care.
Okay, you guys